He's not the same person. He changed.
Story of his entire career. No matter what version of himself he put out there, it always got picked apart. Over time, it wore him down. The jokes, the scrutiny, the pressure to constantly prove himself, it all built up.
But he has a different perception of Jonah. Some see him simply as a comedy film legend. Some see a self-important nepo baby who takes himself too seriously. Others see a toxic man-child who weaponizes therapy speak to control his girlfriend. And if they aren't talking about any of those things, they are hyper-focused on his weight loss and weight gain, gawking at him like some sort of zoo animal. Over the years, Jonah has attempted to respond to all of the hatred towards him, but every time he does, things only get worse. Critics and fans never seem to be satisfied, making it seem like he just can't do anything right.
I came up in goofy comedies and this kind of like curly-haired, overweight kid, and everyone had their own opinion on what I should be, how they could speak to me, how they could treat me.
Jonah Hill went from a complete nobody to securing roles in countless early 2000s comedy bangers. The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Grandma's Boy, Click, Accepted, Knocked Up, Evan Almighty. In 2 short years, he became a reliable secondary or tertiary character that would give audiences funny moments.
Ask me about my wiener!
However, it's unsurprising that Jonah got so many opportunities early on.
Somebody get skinnier.
Successful Hollywood as an accountant for various Hollywood acts, and notably served as the accountant for the iconic rock band Guns N' Roses. Jonah's mother, Sharon Feldstein, is a costume and fashion designer in Hollywood. Her first big job was working as an assistant to Mr. Daniels, who was the executive producer on the set of the popular 70s and 80s show Taxi, and from there worked on various popular 80s and 90s TV productions. Jonah grew up in Hollywood, and with his parents' connections, he had too big of an advantage to fail. Then again, he proved to the world that his parents weren't the only reason he would be successful, acted by Seth Rogen and his childhood best friend, Evan Goldberg, to loosely resemble their real experiences as teenagers. Teenage Seth would be played by Jonah Hill, making it his first leading role on a major Hollywood set. Jonah knew this was his biggest opportunity to date, so he wanted to make sure everything went perfect. Christopher Mintz-Plasse to get the role of Fogel, aka McLovin. Immediately after Chris's audition, Jonah Hill was like, not that guy. In the film, Seth and Fogel have animosity towards each other, which was also the case behind the scenes. Seth Rogen said, Jonah effing hated him. He was all over Jonah's lines, completely disrespectful of the process, probably due to a lack of experience. Then Jonah said, Chris just immediately shut me down, so combative. I was really annoyed because this guy wouldn't let me say anything.
Jonah Hill hated me so much after my audition. I walked out. I get it. I was 17. I was not a professional actor. I kind of went in. I was in high school, and we're playing high school kids. So like Jonah's roasting me, and you remember being in high school. You were just like, yeah, it's my buddy roasting me. I'm like, it's not gonna bother me. I'm gonna roast him back. And that's when I did the audition, and I left the room. I was like, oh my god, Seth signed my script. Nothing's gonna happen. Oh my god. And Jonah's like, that guy. So like Judd Apatow and Greg Mottola and Seth Rogen's like, that guy. Don't cast that guy. And they all said, we gotta cast that guy.
After Jonah told director Judd Apatow not to hire Chris, he said, that's exactly why we're hiring him. It couldn't be more perfect. The fact that it bothers you is exactly what we want. And their intuition was right. Jonah despising Chris only helped the hilarious dynamic between their characters on screen.
Can you say something to me? I wasn't with you when you parked. Yeah, but you saw from afar that I was parking there. You should I didn't think we were gonna be that. Your pants again. That was like 8 years ago. People don't forget.
Superbad became one of the most successful, and my personal favorite, early 2000s comedy films, securing $300 million when and he knew if he kept accepting the role as the funny fat guy, then he would never be able to escape this caricature of himself. From there, he did take on secondary roles in films like Strange Wilderness, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and Funny People, but none matched the success of Superbad. And while voice acting roles in How to Train Your Dragon and Megamind kept him paid, in 2011 he made efforts to establish himself as a legitimate actor after he landed a major role in the sports drama Moneyball alongside well-respected actors like Brad Pitt and Philip Seymour.
Any one of them. They're sitting right here. That could be one of them. If it's Phil Hoffman, whatever.
No, I gotta go with a serious actor.
Okay.
As if his co-star talking about his body.
All my friends were in college, so I was living like a frat guy. Like everyone was just drinking beer and eating pizza with my friends.
Yeah.
And as I mature, even with this movie, I'm maturing as an actor and growing up. And
Are you still considered the fat guy when you go to a party or anything? Because I run into that a whole lot. I'm the fat one. So are you the fat guy in Hollywood still? Or?
Jonah handled these types of comments like a pro, laughing it off or just avoid engaging with it at all. Eventually started giving critics a piece of his mind, which did not fix anything. It actually made his life much worse. After meeting Jonah in person back in 2012, CNN anchor Don Lemon tweeted, said hi to Jonah Hill in a hotel. Think he thought I was a bellman. I didn't know his name till the bellman told me. A lesson to always be kind. And before we get into Jonah's response, this tweet is a perfect example of how Jonah Hill simply could not do anything right to satisfy the media. Couldn't be more wrong about his stardom because Jonah was skyrocketing in success at the time, proving he was still a comedy powerhouse with the release of 21 Jump Street, which grossed over $200 million at the worldwide box office, and once again gave us hilarious moments that will be quoted for a lifetime.
We're not being popping each other's assholes. What we're doing is getting shit done.
Of his upcoming film, this is the end.
James Franco, he's iconic.
Which is a stoner.
Good actor.
Jonah's responses. Seth, we say, coming out of our reverie. No, I'm Jonah. Hill says blankly. That's a great way to start. We blanch, sputter, cough, and try to explain ourselves, but Hill is apparently in no mood to cut anyone any slack, which may just be how he is. He is serious. He is.
Seth Rogen and Jonah Hill, they're good, story writers, they're good script writers, but they're true directors too.
Routine is of little relevance. For a while, they converse with Jonah, and it goes smoothly until they ask a question that pisses him off. Like when they asked, what kind of
part of the LGBTQ community my entire life, and I completely let the members of that community and everybody else down when I used a word like that this weekend.
Grossed over $330 million at the worldwide box office, Jonah Hill had officially stamped his legacy as one of the best comedic actors of the early 2000s and 2010s. It seemed like everything he was cast in became an absolute smash hit, but he still had moments where he felt like he had to call out disrespect from the media. In a confrontation live on French television, the female co-host made frequent references to Jonah Hill getting sodomized in his movie This Is the End. As he received the translations through an earpiece, the host continued with another joke about a fantasy she had about Hill, saying, we would meet up in a hotel room at night, we would chat, you'd make me laugh, then all of a sudden you'd bring your friends DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, and then you'd go away, implying that he was too unattractive for her to sleep with him, and who feels like calling him fat or ugly, but when he cracks back or tries to correct them, he's the problem.
First of all, you smell good, which is surprising.
Why is that surprising?
I don't know, I just wouldn't think of you, a guy who would have a nice scent on. And
that's such a, I'm gonna really work hard to not take that as a shot. You know what I mean? Because I think you would smell nice.
The 2016 limbo that Jonah Hill pulls down his wetsuit in Malibu to show off his bare chest filled with several large tattoos after losing 40 pounds. And after years of this, Jonah responded to a 2021 Daily Mail article once again about his body while he was at the beach surfing. I don't think I ever took my shirt off in a pool until I was in my mid-30s, even in front of family and friends. Probably would have happened sooner if my childhood insecurities weren't exacerbated by years of public mockery about my body by press and interviewers. So the idea that the media tries to play me by stalking me while surfing and printing photos like this and it can't faze me anymore is dope. As tragic as Jonah's history of ridicule was, it was nice to see that he had finally made peace with himself and his image. He continued to embrace this new image with a body positivity tattoo and became a cultural symbol for self-love. However, this was a double-edged sword. It wasn't just negative comments that bothered Jonah, but even positive comments about his appearance were deeply upsetting to him. I know you mean well, but I kindly ask you not to comment on my body. Good or bad, I want to politely let you know it's not helpful and doesn't feel good. Much respect. Jonah Hill made viral headlines in July of 2023 when his ex-girlfriend Sarah Brady exposed text messages he had sent to her 2 years earlier. Shortly after, he revealed that he and his current girlfriend were having a child. Plain and simple. If you need surfing with men, boundaryless, inappropriate friendships with men, to model, to post pictures of yourself in a bathing suit, to post pictures, friendships with women who are in unstable places, and from your wild recent past beyond getting a lunch or coffee or something respectful, I am not the right partner for you. If these things bring you to a place of happiness,
Is he calling him Jesse? What the hell?
and there will be no hard feelings. These are my boundaries for romantic partnership. My boundaries are based on the ways these actions have hurt our trust.
You're making up the craziest statements over your name.
Is both a professional
And our shit. That's crazy.
and model, and Jonah specifically tries to restrict her ability to do those things to continue their relationship. It's also worth considering that Sarah had been doing both of these things prior to when the two started dating in 2021. Almost him as someone who's being honest about difficult topics instead of lashing out or controlling. Picture looking completely unrecognizable, although it's worth clarifying he was on Jonah Hill's Hollywood legacy is a strange one. He's undeniably one of the iconic comedic actors of his generation. Hilarious performances that have lasted decades, yet the conversation around him rarely stays focused on his work for long.
My fiends, we're gonna see what happened to James Franco and Seth Rogen. What happened to Hollywood? Let's see.
The producers of Freaks and Geeks had just finished up their casting process, hiring very talented young actors who would go on to do amazing things in the business. And one of those actors was cast because the producers, like Judd Apatow, thought he had a funny-looking, goofy face, but then soon realized that his female co-workers did not think the same thing. Judd Apatow soon realized that he had a heartthrob on his hands. Judd Apatow had no idea that this was considered attractive. But that's how it went. Thus is the enigma that is James Franco. He allegedly has classic leading man good looks, but on the other hand, he's also a strange-looking character actor. And James Franco has been able to be both of those things, until relatively recently. For most performers, building up a resume of over 150 projects is something that takes an entire lifetime to achieve. But for James Franco, that is a feat that he has accomplished at just 45 years old. This freaky geek was catapulted to fame after appearing in one of the biggest comic book franchises of all time, before settling into his role as a performer who can take on any genre and any film, no matter how big or small. Like the guy would go back and forth between Hollywood franchise to freaky art house indie that nobody saw. One for them, one for him, one for them, one for him. And it's a beautiful thing, but with a tremendous rise at such a young age, sometimes you don't make the best decisions. And for James Franco, those bad decisions would come to light on the very night of his greatest professional achievement, and begin a downfall that is sadly all too common in today's world. But now Franco has taken a back seat as allegations against him begin to pile up. So it's time we examine his career and find out just what the f happened to James Franco. But to truly understand what the f happened to James Franco, we must begin at the beginning of the beginning when he was born on his birthday in 1978, California. When most people get into acting, they go in head first and start auditioning immediately. Past that, he made TV movies to be career makers, but James Franco, playing Peter Parker's best friend, who ultimately becomes his mortal enemy, Harry Osborn. Although there had been comic book
Most genuine duos in Hollywood.
I do love Seth. He's kind of been there at important points in my career.
Their bond seemed unbreakable. That was until Franco got into some major controversy and Seth had a tough choice to make. He could stand up and defend his bro of 2 decades, the guy he made iconic movies and multiple millions of dollars with, denounce him, believe the allegations and essentially prove James was guilty, or simply sidestep, stay quiet and act like he had no idea what James was truly like behind the scenes. Somehow, Seth chose none of these options, and his response left everyone wondering if Seth really knew about James' alleged behavior or if they were ever really friends at all. The rise and fall of James Franco is one of the classic examples of when in Hollywood, you never really know who your friends are. James Franco was getting into trouble with the law as early as middle school, but in a weird way, it helped him get his breakout role in Freaks and Geeks. One of his favorite side hustles was stealing expensive fragrances and selling them to his classmates. He said, like in 8th grade, we started stealing cologne. We had like 30 bottles of cologne each in our lockers at school, and then we could sell cologne at the dances. John Francis Daly, Jason Segel, Martin Starr, Seth Rogen, and Busy Phillips all sustained long-lasting careers. .com/PatrickCC, also linked in the description, to find and instantly close to him, especially his girlfriend at the time. I got it into my head that I needed to be isolated, and so told my girlfriend at the time that I wouldn't be talking to her for 4 months. It did not go down well. We finally made a compromise where I talked to her for an hour a week on the phone. His working relationship with Tyrese Gibson in the film Annapolis. The 2006 film was about a young man from the wrong side of the tracks who realizes his dream is attending the U.S. Naval Academy at Maryland.
It was a wig. He wore a wig.
That's all it took. That's pretty much it. I put on the wig and the character came alive.
After this film, fans started to see a version of James Franco they never saw before. You can see him try to open up a little bit, not be so dramatic or mysterious in interviews.
I'm happy with the movie. It seems like people like it, and it's actually like one of the first movies I've done in a while where I'm like, just like...
Yeah, that's all it takes is put on a disguise or a wig. Yeah, that's how you blow up.
With people, the response is really good and just fun to watch, so just a fun kind of thing.
Why this one?
Why this comedy?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually. I've been offered, comedies before, but usually they're like kind of silly romantic comedies or whatever, and this was like the first one that felt like it was actually funny and be fun to do, so.
Seth, did you always know that James had it to be hilarious?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I met James, I was under, the guys that we were all in comedy together, I was surprised when he went off in kind of a more dramatic direction, if anything like that. I actually remember trying to convince you not to play James Dean. And that didn't, I was wrong. Dude. Yeah, that turned out well.
Pineapple Express didn't just bring James and Seth closer together, it also revived Franco's love for acting in a big way. In 2010, Franco's most notable project was the biographical survival drama film 127 Hours. In the film, avid mountaineer Aaron Ralston must find a way to escape after he gets trapped by a boulder in an isolated slot canyon in Blue John Canyon, southeastern Utah. 127 Hours was well received by critics and audiences and grossed $60 million worldwide. The American Film Institute selected the film as one of the top 10 films of 2010. It was nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Actor for Franco and Best Picture. It was another film that cemented James Franco as a legitimate Hollywood star. He was celebrated for his willingness to take risks as well as his range as an artist. And while not every movie they acted in was a big hit, both Franco and Rogen were in the middle of a career renaissance that made them household names. Franco's notable films during this time included a wide range of different roles, like Eat, Pray, Love, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Spring Breakers, Oz the Great and Powerful. Seth Rogen kept making comedies while also branching out into dramas and romances like Observe and Report, Monsters vs. Aliens, 50-50, Paul, Take This Waltz, and The Guilt Trip. And all of this really culminated to the celebrity-packed comedy This Is the End. Dozens of memorable celebrity cameos in this film, including Rihanna, Emma Watson, and Channing Tatum, who notably played Danny McBride's sexual gimp. When discussing his own role, James Franco seemed to act like a completely different person. The fans didn't really know what to make of this. Some people speculated that this fiasco was a publicity character who is directing a movie and acting in it. At no other time in my career am I going to do this again. Being Tommy off camera made everything flow easier in hindsight. for Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy Film at the 75th Annual Golden Globe Awards. During the event, James wore a pin for Time's Up, the initiative to combat workplace sexual harassment. While wearing the Time's Up pin at such a sensitive time in Hollywood seemed like the right move from a PR standpoint to win over the public, Franco unintentionally ruined his career on the night of his greatest success, starting with
accurate, but I completely support people coming out and being able to have a voice because I didn't.
Later, he was kind of nudging my head down, and I just didn't want him to hate me, so I did it.
Looking back, do you feel like you couldn't say no? No, I could have said no, but because
Knows about the bribe and why I quit. Seth also did a sketch on SNL with Franco, enabling Franco preying on children.
Like, there's never enough. If I get this.
Sounds like Rogen is a solid guy, keeping the trash as far away as possible. Not to mention the career suicide it would be to continue making movies with him. Honestly, good for Seth. I feel like it's so rare in Hollywood for people to cut ties with friends, even when people do deplorable stuff. I respect him for that. His laugh also brings me a lot of joy. While Seth Rogen didn't necessarily owe James Franco protection from the mob, you would have at least thought he'd be there behind the scenes. Now, if James was actually this horrible person and Seth didn't know, totally makes sense why he would be done with him.